couple of rules before we start proper. This is based on how good they are when they're actually out in the field. This is not based on their supports at all. If you don't like when your character's placed, go cry about it on Reddit. I don't give a fuck. And basically we're going to be going from what I think is the worst character to what I think is the best character. Okay, ready, set. The worst character in Jump Force is Deku. Deku has one move that is actually good, being his Detroit Smash. But besides that, he has a very bad projectile, and more importantly, a lot of his moves don't combo well, they don't do enough damage, and more importantly, he gets completely outshined by every other person. He gets destroyed by zoners, he has no response to them, and it's just insane how bad this character is, when in comparison to every single other person you could possibly pick. Easily the worst character in the game, despite me performing well with them, which is a ground rule. Every single clip of these characters is going to be me performing well with the character, just to make the character look like they're somewhat decent even when they're not. Frieza is the worst zoner in the game, making it so he's basically horrible. Zoning is a very good tool in Jump Force, especially when you need to use it in very improbable scenarios, especially, you know, when your opponent has the ability to get in. Having a good spacer is essential for getting them out, and Frieza does nothing to get them out. His death saucers can hurt himself, which is ridiculous, and his actual, like, laser projectile is done way better by another character up farther on the list that is basically the exact same thing as his, just a little bit better. As for the actual character, you know, of like the rush attack, it's okay, and his ultimate is the actual worst damage-wise in the game. It's the worst in terms of raw damage, not actually the worst in the game, because it does still land quite easily. Frieza's an easy F tier, and I don't know why anyone would call him any higher than that. Cell is the epitome of an incomplete character. While he does have the tools to somewhat do well, it's not really gonna happen, you know, very often. His zoning tools are mediocre, his actual super moves are mediocre as well. Everything about him is mediocre, but more importantly, because they're mediocre makes him F tier. It's because he doesn't have any extraordinary moves, except maybe one of his ultimate, because his ultimate is okay, his ultimate's good. If you put his ultimate on a CAC, for example, it's very good, because you can actually combo into it. But Cell just basically needs to have the opponent make a prediction and then just land the Solar Kamehameha, which basically isn't going to happen, and if it does, why don't you just use someone who will benefit from it more? I don't understand. Cell, there is no reason to use Cell is the main problem, because if there's a reason to use Cell, he'd be in, like, E tier, but as of right now, he's a clear F tier character just for how incomplete he feels. Boruto spends way too much meter to do so little damage, and there's no point to run Boruto over running Naruto at all. Even if Naruto's not the greatest character, Boruto is in no way a replacement. Also, his Rasengan is so much more unreliable and not as good as most people would think. And I would say more importantly, Boruto just is too small, and, well, small is actually an important thing, because you can see more of the screen, but the enemy actually can see what Boruto does more, because half of his stuff makes him double in size. It makes it a lot more easy to predict. The only thing good about him is maybe his ultimate, but even then it's not great. Boruto's just a very bad character with way too much weight potential and way too little of a damage output. Kicking off E tier, Yugi used to be really nice and really fun to use and pretty good, until he nerfed his damage output, which was requested by like one guy on Reddit probably, I don't know. I don't know, probably Twitter, who knows. Every social media site could basically complain about something. But whatever. Yugi, he's pretty random. He's either a really good zoner or a really bad zoner, because you have to keep getting magic formula when you're already buffed up. And Dark Magician Girl is very easy to escape out of. His other projectile is very easy to block. His ultimate isn't very good. He's just a bad character, but he isn't the worst zoner. As a zoner, he's not terrible. He's an okay type of zoner. But everything else is so lacking that I can't put him any higher than E. Kaguya sucks in a very similar way to Boruto, of wasting too much meter to not do a ton of damage. But Kaguya does it a little bit better because her ultimate's better, and overall she has better tools to do her job, which is doing a little bit of damage and kind of tagging them. But here's the thing, her almighty purple push, you know, like with the hundreds of fists that you can see on screen right now, is actually a very good attack. I would call it one of the best support attacks in the game, but we don't exactly make this based on supports. As an actual attack, though, it is still pretty good. Overall, though, Kaguya is not great. Kaguya is pretty bad, but definitely better than the Boruto example, just because she still wastes meter to basically do no damage, but still does it a little bit better than Boruto, which is why she's an E tier instead of F. Still a pretty shit character, though. Seiya has the worst super in the game. His other tools aren't great. It's not very fun to play. Just kind of boring. He's a pretty forgettable character. And I don't understand why you'd play him over other ones. Who are we talking about? Every single one of Renji's supports can't be called during them, which is stupid, because it ridiculously nerfs the damage output of this character, which, when you have a character that needs a good damage output, it's a very, very bad idea to make sure they can't combo into supports. Especially when he gets pretty much obliterated by zoning, even though he can play a really good neutral. But his neutral's really all he has. He doesn't have much besides it, which makes him an easy E tier. Senshio is incredibly situational. He's very mild. His supers are very mediocre. I would not call them any good. His ultimate does the most damage in the game, but is very hard to land. You basically need to predict your enemy to do a super or a jab and immediately do the ultimate, which requires tons of reaction time. And you can't use supers, at least from what I've seen, to actually confirm into it, which makes it incredibly situational. Besides that, his damage output is pretty lackluster and is not good at all. Senshio probably is one of the worst sword fighters in this entire game, and there are quite a few. But Senshio is just the epitome of too little. He does too little to be considered a good character. Kicking off B tier, we have Blackbeard. Blackbeard has two big hindrances. He lacks a proper projectile, and he's way too big, and his particle effects take up way too much of the screen. However, if you can get around his big ass size, his thickness, I guess you could say, he becomes a very nice character that you can use to combo into a lot of good shit. His supers do a lot of damage too, which makes him pretty good at that kind of stuff. But his size is a huge drawback for some people, and his lack of a proper projectile is just way too crushing to put him anywhere but D tier, which is sad, because if he didn't have his size, I think he'd be C tier. Big Forehead Hancock is the first character with a very busted projectile. It's absolutely retarded, especially when there's a little bit of lag, because it comes out super quickly. It does quite a bit of damage. It's a really good zoning tool. But except for that, she's terrible. She's really bad, but that one busted move bumps her up all the way to D tier. It's just a testament to how busted some projectiles can be. Sabo is D tier for two reasons. The first reason is that Flame Fist and Dragon's Claw are very easy to counter when it's Sabo, as, you know, juxtaposed to a CAC where you don't know how they're going to combo into the moves. With Sabo, you know how he's going to combo into the moves. And the second thing that keeps him down is the fact that he struggles against other zoners, which is a huge one. If he didn't struggle against other zoners, he'd probably be in C tier, not D tier, but I wouldn't call him, like, very good by any means, which is why, you know, he's in D tier. Gaara and his Sand Coffin is basically a waste of a slot, because they need to be completely stationary for it to even be useful, and it takes up too much charge time. Besides that, Sand Tsunami's pretty good as like an anti-approach option because it has armor on it, and his like dirt spewing attack is okay, but they're both pretty easy to counter just by blocking, and they're not super hard to counter overall. It just makes Gaara D tier because his moves are a bit too predictable and they come out a bit too late to be able to be unexpected and good at a moment's notice. Dragon Shiryu is above Mr. Seiya because his, well, moves are much more safe. Excalibur is very safe, his ultimate actually does something very useful, but besides that, he's not very good. He's mediocre, but not very good. You know, perfect place for a D tier, if you know what I mean. Kurapika was my biggest surprise going into this list, mainly because I think that Kurapika isn't as bad as everyone says that he is. Dowsing Chain is a very easy move to connect, and he can combo into supports very well. His ultimate does a lot of damage, and he can heal himself, and he can heal others with his support moves. Even though this is based on supports, I think it's still worth mentioning. Kurapika is way better than everyone gives him credit for, but he's not really good. Like, he's still kind of bad. He's just not, one of the worst, like everyone else would say. Kicking off C tier, Trunks is okay. He's not great. He's very average. C tier is the start of the very average characters, and Trunks really encompasses that perfectly. He's got an okay projectile, his rush attack is okay, his ultimate's okay. A lot of his stuff is just the epitome of an average character. There's a reason why you should use Trunks, if you want like a fair and balanced experience. But besides that, he's just not really that. Just like Boa Hancock, Piccolo is the exact same situation where he completely sucks, but he has one move that makes him basically average by itself. Special Beam Cannon is a very powerful move that has way too much hit stun that stuns for a long time that you can even call supports in the middle of. It's legitimately so unfair to the point where it makes him in a mid-tier by itself. It's not okay. If anything, it's something that needs to be nerfed, because Piccolo should not be as good as he is because of one thing. Sanji, I don't think online he can't hurt female characters. I think he can hurt female characters if you're online, but in actual, casual play he can, which is a bit of a stupid mechanic when you think about it, but, it matters that much. The thing about Sanji that I think makes him okay is the fact that a lot of his supers are very good, they do good damage, you can call supers during it, they can combo into each other, but besides that, there's not really a lot of reason to pick Sanji over other characters, mainly because even though his super moves are okay, that's all you're really going to get out of him. If your opponent can predict that shit, you're a little fucked, but listen, it's Jump Force, how many people do you think are actually going to predict that shit? Naruto is one of the most spammy characters in the entire game. His fucking Shuriken or Rasengan or whatever the fuck you'd call it is incredibly good. His rush attack, where he just rushes you, leaves it with so much hit stun to the point where it's very nice to use almost at any opportunity. And his rush attack, his second rush attack that you see on screen, is just very nice. It's a very good anti-zoning capability attack. Naruto's just a pretty good all-rounder, but besides that, he doesn't have anything extraordinary. Besides Spirit Gun, Yusuke doesn't have anything incredibly remarkable. He's a very average character that you could use in a multitude of ways, but Spirit Wave is okay, and Organ Murder is pretty hard to land unless you actually make it your own combo to combo into that move in particular. His ultimate, though, is very good, and you can land it very easily, but besides that, not really. This character's kind of bad. But Spirit Gun is such a good projectile to the point where I can't put him any, higher than C tier, but I can't put him any lower than C tier. Vegeta is your basic zoner character. He'll get quite a lot done, especially with his solar, whatever his Kamehamehas, along with his Ki Blast, despite it being a little unreliable at times. His rush attack is quite good, because your enemy won't expect it, but, besides that, he is a little, unpredictable, along with being a little unreliable. It's more of a mixed bag whether you're going to have a good game if you get lucky or not, which it happens more often than you'd, think at a first glance. Goku is somewhat similar to Vegeta with the Kamehameha and the rush attack and such, but Goku has a counter which is very reliable and very safe to use, because if they don't have a projectile, then you can just throw it out there, and if they grab you, it's not going to do that much damage unless they're awakened. And if they're awakened, why are you trying to counter moves? Doesn't make much sense. What bumps him up, though, is that Goku's ultimate is a little bit more reliable, in my opinion, considering you can just throw in the ultimate, which you can do with Vegeta too, but Vegeta really needs to combo into his ultimate and needs to keep a safe distance, while Goku is a character that needs to get in, which helps his ultimate in the long run while it kind of hinders Vegeta's ultimate. Rukia would have made it to A tier if it wasn't for one reason. Despite being a semi-zoner herself, she gets destroyed by other zoners in ways that I can't even imagine. You put a Ryo Saiba in front of a Rukia and she just cowers. There's nothing she can do. It's ridiculous how much Rukia struggles against zoners. Besides maybe the F tiers I've mentioned, Rukia might struggle the most against zoners, but, she has a lot of damage power, so it just kind of helps her in the long run compared to other, characters who get destroyed by zoning. Much like Rukia, Toguro would have been an A tier if it wasn't for something incredibly simple. He is a one-trick pony, through and through. His high damage is his one trick. If you can get around Toguro's awful get-in strategies, which is just spam one super, basically, because you think you're invincible is a very good super, I'm not gonna lie. It's very special, it's very nice. But besides that, he's pretty bad, and, well, that one thing boosts him up. That and his insane damage, but his insane damage and his one super is all he has. Besides that, he's terrible. But, he's probably the biggest polarizing example of one strong tool basically carrying a character from bottom tier to a very high one. Kenshin supers are very good and reliable, one of them being able to break guards basically on command if they get too close, and one of his rush attacks being very reliable and good to whip out in a scenario where your opponent's getting just a little bit too aggressive. But besides that, he doesn't have much. He's probably the best example of a character who gets outshined by other ones, taking him from what would be usually a high tier to a much, lower type of tier in comparison. Asta can lock the super meter with his ultimate, and can also drain meter, which is very good, but it's more of a one-trick pony, but he does that one trick incredibly well, as opposed to just average, which, bumps him up to a B tier. Dai has an ability where he can completely buff himself up at the cost of draining meter a little bit. If you've ever played JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Heritage for the Future, it is basically similar to that in a respect of it drains the meter like, Dio in that game's Time Stop. But just does it by buffing your character up a ton. But besides that, a lot of his moves are easy to combo into and nice, but there's one problem with him, and that's the fact that his damage, in comparison to other people coming up on the list, is very lacking, which, keeps him away from that high tier, which is basically the only thing that keeps people away from high tier in this game, believe it or not. I know, shocking to think that more damage means better, right? Kakashi is very similar to Sasuke, and I would say he's a little bit worse than Sasuke, but, let's be fair here. Worse by a slot. I've seen them far away on tier lists before, which never really made sense to me considering they're very similar characters. But here's the thing, right? Kakashi struggles where Sasuke doesn't because his zoning tools just aren't as good. They're still pretty good, just not, insane like Sasuke's. Oh yeah, Sasuke is the quintessential zoner character. He has all of the tools to zone in the entire game. In fact, he's quite good at zoning, probably one of the best in the entire game. That's why he's kicking off A tier, importantly. But more importantly, his zoning tools completely destroy other people who aren't as good at zoning as him. His Fireball Jujutsu is an incredibly good move, and the Matarasu is completely overpowered in the right scenario. Not to mention he has a Rush Armor with Super Armor on it. He has so many good supers, and he also has this really good heavy that you can just kind of spam. Easy A tier character. But I can't really put him any higher because, well, other people can kind of destroy him if they have the right abilities to get in. Luffy has one of the best rush attacks in the entire game, but he also has one of the best unblockables in the game. But he also has a ranged attack that's so good when there's only a little bit of lag that your enemy can't react in time unless they're already shielding. Not to mention the fact that he has very good movement and he has a lot of good normals. He's very, very, very powerful, but he does have a lot of end lag on attacks if you whiff them, which keeps him from a very much higher spot. Kenshiro has some of the best tools in the game to do what he needs to do. If he can lock your stamina bar, you are fucked. There's no way of getting around it. You are not going to live past that. But he's a little bit of a mixed bag because some people still don't know that he can completely lock your stamina bar, and some people know that like it's the back of their hand because that's his one really good gimmick. And as a gimmick, yeah, it's really good, but it is still a gimmick and they can still predict it, which keeps him from that S tier spot. Especially if you get an Awakening of the Senses. If he gets that in, his damage becomes one of the fucking craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life in a fighting game. Gon has an unblockable attack, but it is a very good unblockable attack. He can also get completely really good buffs at any time. He can up his attack and his defense basically on command if you let him. But here's the thing. His ultimate is very bad, and not because of its damage. It is one of the best damaging ultimates in the game, but it literally offs him, which keeps him from a very higher spot. However, I have no idea how to play this character. Someone tell me. He's so technical and hard. I have no idea how to play him. It's honestly not very fun. It's very boring, in fact. Hisoka has one of the easiest attacks to land in the entire game. Bungee gum some of the characters coming up if you know exactly what to do with him. Hisoka in general is just a very good character. It's an easy A tier. There's really no contest. Dio has a lot of really good tools that can basically carry him in a lot of situations. His projectile is very good if you can land it properly. He has signed by his longtime rival. Jotaro's damage is next level crazy. He has so much hit stun on his star finger that can combo into more star fingers. It's ridiculous how good this character is sometimes. Even if he has a pretty high skill gap, even if it's not, the biggest thing in the world, it's still substantial as compared to other characters, which keeps him at A tier instead of S tier, because you can just have a lot of other characters that just are easy mode compared to him. This one's gonna seem a little controversial, but Aizen basically has a slot wasted from Black Coffin. Yeah, I'm pulling it off here, I understand that, but you're not gonna have that happen on higher ranks or against people who aren't complete idiots and haven't played the game before. If that is the case, then it's basically a slot wasted where another super could be there. And he's still good, don't get me wrong, his damage output is still very good, but he basically lacks a third super because it just doesn't work as well as other ones, if you understand what I mean by that. Starting off S tier, Zoro is insane. His damage is insane. His projectile is insane. Everything about this character is absolutely busted. There is no competition. Every single thing he has in his toolkit does everything you want to do. It drives your kid to soccer practice. It fucks your wife while you're watching. It does everything. It is mad. But, and there is a big but here, you still do need to, somewhat learn the character, which cannot be said for these next three. Ryo Saiba's zoning is fucking crazy. You can keep them away forever. I hate it so much. It's so obnoxious. It works too well. He has 3 zoning moves in his kit, and you can just keep them away forever. The entire match to like 75% or their entire health bar is drained. How is this fair? Why did this pass like the beta stage? What the fuck? Killua is very good because LOL, Lightning Palm, and Thunderbolt, and Godspeed just being a thing and being commanded to her ultimate. Oh, also Ultimate is very good. It connects easily. Every heavy is good on her. Ha! What a good character. Very fun to fight against. LOL, Ichigo. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed my suffering of having to go through the S tier characters. Oh, also, by the way, I know some people are going to get mad about Deku being placed the lowest because My Hero Academia is a very popular anime, but it's so